Good morning. Good morning here in Helsinki, and good morning online. This event is being streamed, is being recorded as well. So there's people across Europe online. So welcome and happy to have you with us. Welcome to this launch of BioAgora. BioAgora, a project that is funded by the Horizon Europe funding program from the European Commission, and it's set to develop a EU science service for biodiversity. Why is that the case in EU Science Service? Why do we need it? Actually, because there is already a lot of research out there on biodiversity. It has been out there for many decades. And there is a good set of biodiversity-related policy at European levels and other levels. But somehow there is still a mismatch between the research and science and between the policy making and the policy implementation. This is why the EU Biodiversity Strategy for 2030, which was agreed a number of years ago, called for a science policy mechanism for research-based options for ratcheting up the implementation of biodiversity commitments. Ratcheting up. When I read the Biodiversity Strategy for the first time, I thought, ratcheting up, what's that? Who of you who is not native British knew the word ratcheting up? Nobody. Okay, so I'm not the only one who had to look it up. It's like with a fire, when the fire is kind of just nearly out, there's just a kind of some glowing coals. You rake up, you revive, you revitalize actually what's going up. And that's what the intention is also with the biodiversity strategy, to ratchet up, to revive commitments for biodiversity which are in the biodiversity strategy and which are already in other EU policies or global policies for biodiversity. So we're here to ratchet up. Ratcheting up, yeah, so the science service is meant to help this ratcheting up. When I prepared for this launch, obviously when you think of a launch, I thought of a rocket. A rocket that is on a journey, and this is also what we're here. We are in a journey which started decades ago. So this is not the first step in the journey. A number of decades ago, with a number of science policy interfaces already developed. We have a number of them with us in the BioAgora project. We have Alternet, we have Eclipse, we have OPLA, all kind of projects which have been previously already resulting from framework programs, from research projects, that all have their own niche and implementation, but there is still this kind of need for a science service as a missing piece, as a new piece in the puzzle to respond to urgent policy requests that cannot be addressed by current long-term research projects or otherwise. So this science service is meant to help channel and orchestrate, as we call it, this research into policy and vice versa. I also thought, when thinking of what this science service could be, we all have our own imagination. I'm sure there will be a number of people here who have a similar thought. You know the film 2001, A Space Odyssey? It's an old film, 50 years ago, I think. In that film, it's a journey of a rocket, of a spaceship, Discovery 1. And on that spaceship, there is this computer called HAL. And this computer, the crew on the ship, on the spaceship, could ask this computer a question, and that computer would know everything about the data and the information from the ship. It would collect everything immediately, also about the journey or whatever, and give in a very soft-spoken voice, a human voice with emotion. It would give the answer straight away to the crew for them to make the decisions on their journey, what to do. That is sometimes something I depict, kind of, could it be like that? Just a very simple, you ask and you get a reply immediately. Obviously, it's not going to be like that, but today we will hear a bit more about what it might be. We're on the next step in this journey, what the science service might be like. So we have here with us a number of people that will tell you more about it. Just to start with myself, Ben Delbar is my name. I'm a partner in the project as well, and I will be your purser on this part of the journey. So we will hear first about the project implementation, some of the work packages, some of the ideas that are going to be developed. But before that, let me just say a few household things. As I mentioned already, this is streamed and recorded. The audience is not visible to the people online. People online are not visible to us here or elsewhere. But if you ask a question, there's a possibility to ask questions in the chat in YouTube. At least if you have registered or at least logged in with your YouTube or Google account, if I'm not mistaken, then you can post questions in the box. Then your name might show up. Just that you're aware of that. If you put questions or comments in the chat, please put a name of who you want to address if the question is specifically for a person, and otherwise we will find out who is the best person to respond. Another thing is we have, of course, social media, so please do share this event, any thoughts that you come up with or with your networks. Hashtag BioAgora Launch as the hashtag to be used to spread the word. So that's it for now. I will invite now you to watch the video. So I would say fasten your seatbelts for a 3-minute trip down BioAgora.
The EU Biodiversity Strategy for 2030 is a comprehensive, ambitious, and long-term plan to protect nature and reverse the degradation of Europe's ecosystems. Politicians need clear and persuasive advice to reconcile their policy decisions with the biodiversity strategy's commitments. The European research community faces growing expectations to deliver the necessary scientific information to underpin effective solutions. Science-based evidence is in great demand. Despite the remarkable results of European scientists, matching scientific results with policymakers' needs remains a challenge. Science, policy, and society need to work closely together to transform good science into good decisions. The Science Service for Biodiversity aims to facilitate this interaction. The European Commission has tasked the BioAgora project with creating the Science Service for Biodiversity. In the next 5 years, BioAgora will develop the Science Service for Biodiversity with inclusive governance and a feasible business model. Promote cooperation and co-learning among researchers, policymakers, and practitioners contributing to biodiversity protection. Position the Science Service for Biodiversity as the scientific pillar of the EU Knowledge Centre for Biodiversity. The Science Service for Biodiversity will help formulate customized advice for current and emerging policy needs based on a synthesis of real-life examples, demonstration cases, and scientific evidence. BioAgora will design a web-based and structured collaborative environment for users and providers of biodiversity knowledge that meets the needs of a variety of stakeholders. To ensure the diversity of expertise across the continent, the project team includes 22 organizations from 13 countries and a number of long-standing European initiatives such as Alternet, OPLA, and Eclipse. A gathering place of ideas and services, an agora is a vital space for dialogue in the community. The BioAgora project unites the wealth of knowledge from research organizations, civil society, public authorities, and private businesses with the sole purpose of advancing more effective decision-making for biodiversity. Finally, an alliance between science, policy, and society will greatly advance the sustainability transformation in the EU.
Quite an ambition that we have there in front of us, but as I said, this is the beginning of a journey, so we have ample time to make this all happen. Of course, this is one element, a video that will be also available on the website. We have a website, www.bioagora.eu, which will be on display now. We have a website which is the usual project website, obviously with activities of the project, the events. Sorry, it was for me to push the button. Push the button. So yeah, a website. The usual elements you will there. This is the place that you can follow if you want to follow progress of outputs and outcomes from the project. With the usual, we have a page with a stakeholders network. Very important. The reason why I show this is this endeavor is not just this project team. We are about 60 here in the room. For the people watching online, you don't see that, but 60 people in the room, 22 partners you heard. But actually, this journey is with many more out there. We'll hear a few on stage later on, but an invitation for all of you, join in, not only by registering for the newsletter. We will produce a newsletter at some point, but also to bring in your ideas to help develop this science service. So yeah, also event website or whatever, so you can share, you can follow activities on that site. Nicely designed, by the way, by the colleagues of Euronovia and Pensoft, who are in charge of all the communication activities of the BioAgora project. So now it's time for me to invite a great team of work package leaders, as we call them, to the stage. Please, can I invite Kati, Joseph, Kaisa, Claire, Esther, and Juliette to the stage. Join me here. Okay, I'll give this here. So this is only a sample of all the project people here in the room. So they have the heavy task to explain in a few words what actually the plan is for this project. I start with Kati Vierico, a senior researcher at the Finnish Environment Institute, where she leads and coordinates international and national projects related to, among others, biodiversity science policy interfaces. So very much what this BioAgora is about. Kati is the project leader. Kati, thanks for having us here in Helsinki, for one. As project leader, a simple question: why is this project called BioAgora? What does it stand for?
Thanks, Ben. When we were preparing our proposal, we were considering what would be best acronym really represent our principles and values. If you consider, as you said, it's not just you push the button and then you receive answer to all your concerns, but it's more on dialogue. And when you want to collaborate with and be inclusive and open and meet others and to start to develop something and find maybe solutions together, where then you would go. Not necessarily to that ship, but most likely to marketplace, to really meet people and start to collaborate with them. That's why we chose BioAgora. And I think that name very nicely represents our consortium and also our values.
Okay, thank you very much. Indeed, very much this marketplace idea. Everybody welcome to share ideas, to agree or disagree with whatever is being developed and help shape it. Very good. Then I move to Joseph Settele. Joseph leads the Department of Conservation Biology and Social Ecological Systems at the Helmholtz Center for Environmental Research, or the UFZ in Germany. Joseph, in BioAgora, you lead a package which is called Case Study Hub, in which we will assess multi-scale demonstration cases. Can you say a bit more about how we will go about that?
Well, work package 1, which is the work package you're talking about, is the entry point somehow for the whole project or the whole activity. And we have selected a certain set of demonstration cases which would help us along the way how we can really implement all the good and brilliant ideas I think we have created for the entire project. So it's a kind of, let's say, test case. We have selected 4 topics, let's say, which is nature-based solutions. One is about freshwater, one is about the CBD link, and one is about pollination. Just as a starting point where we try to, let's say work out how it can really function. As a starting point also, we look at the typology of implementation challenges, which is a kind of ever ongoing process, I think, a kind of living document we are trying to create in this work package. Later, and after we have some experience how we can select and how we can deal with requests, we will develop further demonstration cases, but that's a bit later in the stage. And then we do some forecasting activities as well to see how we can really bring the whole thing into the future, let's say, scenario world, which is done by some of our colleagues in the work package. That's it in a nutshell, more or less, as a starting point.
Yeah. Okay, so really testing what we're aiming to do, learning from it, maybe learning also what does not work and therefore do things differently. So indeed, various projects at the local scale. You mentioned CBD link. For those who are not familiar, CBD is the Convention on Biological Diversity. And actually very good that you mentioned that, because we have, of course, also a global sphere that we work in. This EU Science Service will focus on the European Union, but within the framework of the Global Convention on Biological Diversity that we will work in. Okay, then I move to Kaisa. Kaisa Korhonen-Kurki is a senior researcher scientist at Syke, also at the Finnish Environment Institute. In BioAgora, very heavily involved in work that is on the landscape of actors, networks, and policies. So how will you identify and assess this landscape that you're part of?
Okay, thank you, Ben. Of course, we are part of the wider landscape of science policy interfaces in Europe, and in order to create a science service, we need to understand this wider landscape, how it works and how it is. And we are happy that we are able to build on the previous efforts that has been already mapping the landscape. And now we are particularly aiming to dig into much deeper to analyze how connected or fragmented these networks that are working in the science policy interface are, and particularly looking at who are the key actors and where the key expertise is. And we also strive to understand that how transformative these networks are by assessing how effectively they are unlocking the barriers for change or creating societal agency for collective action. And finally, we also assess the wider policy environment where these networks are operating by doing the policy coherence analysis and across the sectors, and also in order to see how we could create a cross-sectoral dialogue within this policy environment in order to enable the implementation of biodiversity strategy.
Thanks a lot, Kaisa. Indeed, a big landscape that you're part of, and a big puzzle actually for us to make and to find our niche in. You've mentioned transformative change. Good that you added that, because the biodiversity strategy itself is also embedded or component of the EU Green Deal, which very much calls a transformative change in society. So this is also what we're contributing to here with BioAgora. Then Claire Brown. Claire Brown is an ecosystem services and natural capital professional working on the science policy interface as well at the UN Environment Programme World Conservation Monitoring Center. Claire, in BioAgora you lead the work on the state of knowledge, so a very big fundament of the entire project. How will you go about assessing that state of knowledge and leading it?
Great, thanks very much. So it is quite important that the science service does consolidate and makes the best use of what's already existing. And as we've heard, that there's lots of research across Europe, and a lot of that research is very good and has produced lots of knowledge and tools. So the important things we need to understand is, firstly, what has been used previously by policymakers and why they've used it. Then what we also need to do is find out what hasn't been used and why it hasn't been used. Where is it found? What has to happen for it to be better used? Some of that might be just promotion, some other work might need to happen. So it's not just though backward looking, what we also need to be is a bit forward looking as well. So we need to think about the horizon scanning and what might we need to ask research in the future around knowledge needs to help implement the EU biodiversity strategy and beyond. And finally, the fourth thing we need to do is to think about what sort of research and knowledge synthesis programs need to be designed and implemented. And that sort of work needs to happen with partners like Eclipse and other ongoing initiatives. So it's important to also think about what's out there and how we can better use what we've got.
Definitely, very important what is out there on our journey, that we don't bump into certain rocks on our way, and identify in time which are where they are. So a new knowledge is very important as well. So it will be a combination of existing and new knowledge. Esther Kellerman is a social scientist from the Environmental Social Science Research Group in Hungary. You may already have noticed there's a strong social science component in BioAgora, lots of social scientists taking part. And we have a work package dedicated to it, which is called Empowering Collective Agency. You need to explain that for me, so please, Esther, help me.
Yeah, thanks, Ben. So many times when society thinks about biodiversity, it tends to be something distant, something overly scientific, something belonging to the sphere of science and policy. But actually, all of our decisions on biodiversity is influenced by our worldviews, by the principles we deeply held, and by the values. So all these decisions are also decisions on values, on social values. So there is always a strong socio-cultural element in biodiversity-focused decisions. And if we do not consider these social-cultural aspects, then there is a risk of having conflicts, creating inequalities, or eroding cultural values related to nature. So in Work Package 5, actually we search for solutions to opening up the science service to a huge diversity of actors, including not just scientists and policymakers, but also practitioners, business actors, or citizen scientists, or the general public. The ultimate goal with this is to empower these actors to share their knowledge, express their opinion, and also to enable them to actively take part in safeguarding biodiversity. And we are doing this by analyzing gaps in capacities and prioritizing which capacity gaps needs to be filled. Then we also offering learning opportunities and trainings to empowering these diverse actors, and searching for solutions to actively engage the general public and citizen scientists.
Excellent. I couldn't have said it better than you. Fantastic. Thank you. Then I move to Juliette. We heard already now about the concrete examples of the case studies that the project is working on, that we will assess the landscape, where are we positioned in this entire landscape of science policy interfaces. We learned about how the knowledge will be assessed, and identifying new knowledge, and then science questions that may need to be addressed, and it is all wrapped in a kind of a social context, social cultural context. But then there's a work package led by Juliette Young, senior researcher at INRAE, the French National Institute for Research in Agriculture, Food and the Environment, and that work package is about actually setting up, developing this science service for biodiversity. So what we all want to know is actually what's going to look like and how will it function. Help us.
Okay, so no pressure at all. Yeah, so the whole idea really with BioAgora, as my colleagues have been saying, is that throughout the project we're going to learn from all the project activities to deliver a science service that actually works for everyone. And the way we're going to do this is by setting up some really strong sort of building blocks or sort of an infrastructure, which will be developing guiding principles and an ethical infrastructure that will really underpin the whole of the science service. And underpin, of course, the functions that the science service will deliver. And these functions will be based on the needs of the science service users, and they might include things like knowledge requests, like fast requests or in-depth requests, horizon scanning, etc., etc. And we also need to think very much about the long-term sustainability of the science service. And this will be done through a business plan to ensure the financial long-term stability of the science service, but also through a dedicated web platform that we're going to be setting up based very much on the needs of the science service users. And this will really provide a sort of single entry point for EU biodiversity data and knowledge. It'll also host and manage an active community of knowledge holders, policy makers, decision makers, etc., that can be engaged and contribute to the science service in the long long term, and it'll also host capacity building activities for them to really be able to engage. And all of this will be dependent on this iterative learning throughout the project, from, of course, our activities, but also our policy and our other partners. And the idea will be to build a science service that is fair, that is functional, but very importantly, that is usable and used by science and policy in order to really enable transformative change.
Exactly. Thanks a lot. Transformative change. There we have it again. And iteration, I heard. An iterative process, indeed, very much. We have still 4.5 years ahead of us in this project, so we will not produce the science service by next week, close of business. But this is work that will be done together with other stakeholders and obviously the client, in trying to identify, are we actually providing what is expected from various groups. So thanks a lot to all of you. Please take your seat again so that I can invite some of the stakeholders that you mentioned who are not participant in the project. By the way, this project, you've only seen a few people here in front on stage. You have, as I mentioned, 60 people here in the group. Not only scientists, but also experts in platform development, in communication, in business planning, and what have you. So a broad spectrum of expertise to make this all happen. So may I invite now to the floor Christina, Jessica, Camino, Hilde, and Marie to join me here. Yes, somebody told me in advance that we actually have to do something about the gender balance, but it's in a different direction than usual. So welcome very, very much to the stage. Can I first ask Cristina Pantazzi of the European Commission DG Research and Innovation, and Jessica Giraldi from the Directorate General for the Environment to say something, because we have actually a very unique situation. This New Horizon program that this project is funded by has been co-created. So it's actually the clients together, DG Environment and DG Research and Innovation, who jointly came up with this call, so they're jointly the client of this service. So very much interested to understand what your expectations are from BioAgora in this.
Thank you, Ben. First of all, allow me to, on behalf of the European Commission and DG Research and Innovation, to congratulate all of you, all the partners of this consortium, for being part of this very important project for us, and to wish you all the success for the next years. So, as you can imagine, also from our attendance here, we are many colleagues from the Commission. This is a very important project for us, and we hope that it will deliver all what we have heard. It is very ambitious, but we believe that with all the expertise that we have, it will manage to have to operationalize the concept of science service, something that was missing until now. As we have seen already, the aim is to provide timely research-based options, information, scientific information to policymakers, make suggestions for priorities, identify the research gaps. And this is very timely now, because BioAgora is starting now. We have we have the Knowledge Center in place, we have the Biodiversity platform, we have Biodiversa Plus, so we need to make it right. It's a great opportunity now for all of us to have the BioAgora and the Science Service in place. So BioAgora, it's a project, it's not a normal project for us. It's not a research project, it's a coordination project. It needs to be very flexible, and it's the way that it's going to be implemented is going to be very important for the future of the science service. It's going to be the scientific of the Knowledge Center and for biodiversity, and you will hear more from my colleague Camino. So it's very important to have it right from the beginning. But I'm very confident that after listening to all of you and following the discussions, that we will have it. It will be a success. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Christina. I just would like to add 3 points to the explanation of Christina. So first of all, the new governance of the EU biodiversity strategy ensure for the first time that research is at the heart of policy making, and this is a unique opportunity to connect policy and the knowledge provision, and to ensure that the flow of information goes from one direction to the other. The European Biodiversity Platform is the trigger, and also the subgroups will be the trigger on the science service, and from one side, and on the other side, the science service we expect that will liaise with the Horizon projects and channel back the results from Horizon projects to the Biodiversity Platform. And of course, we encourage the collaboration, as Christina mentioned, with the European Biodiversity Partnership, Biodiversa Plus. And then the second point is that we expect that the science service will represent the scientific and research community at the UBP meetings, so the Biodiversity Platform meetings. And to this end, it's essential that the science service will mobilize and coordinate with a broad pool of experts that will provide insights to the Biodiversity Platform, and in return, they will have they will be informed about the topics of the policy agenda. And then the third point is that the science service will help to identify, as was mentioned before, the knowledge gaps of research on biodiversity, and also to alert, to raise awareness about emerging issues, new issues for biodiversity identified. I conclude saying that it's very important that the collaboration between the project and the European Commission continue to ensure a good prosecution of the project. Thank you.
Thank you both. Very, very clear answer, very clear demand, obviously. And as you say, the time is right now. It's indeed clearly embedded in the biodiversity strategy that there is this need for a science service. There has been calls before, but as I mentioned at the start, this is a time to bring the elements together. One question, if I may. You mentioned the Knowledge Center for Biodiversity and Biodiversa Plus. We will hear about them in a moment. But you also mentioned a few times this EU Biodiversity Platform. For those of you who are not familiar with that platform, can you say a few words on who they are, what it is?
Yeah, the EU Biodiversity Platform is the expert group that work to implement the EU Biodiversity Strategy, and is composed of different subgroups that are working groups or expert groups on the different topics that are covered by the EU Biodiversity Strategy. At the moment there are 9 working groups, and they are coordinated in the several units of DG Environment, and in the groups there are member states and stakeholders, so also the Commission, member states, stakeholders take part in the groups, and also there are forum, ad hoc groups that can be created in a faster way to work on more pressing issues.
Okay, thank you. So it's really kind of the body that helps implement the biodiversity strategy, and as far as I understand, the main client at the moment for the science service to lead questions to the Knowledge Center. That leads me to the Knowledge Center for Biodiversity. We have with us Camino Lekete, who's a researcher at the EU Joint Research Center, and she works on the EU Knowledge Center for Biodiversity. If I can stick to the analogy with a rocket, I think the Knowledge Center would be regarded as the mothership of the science service, I think, no? So Camino, please enlighten us. Tell us a bit about the Knowledge Center and how it relates to the science service.
Thank you, Ben. So for those of you that do not know this new EU body, the European Commission Knowledge Center for Biodiversity was announced in the Biodiversity Strategy. So it's an action of the Biodiversity Strategy. It was one of the first actions already implemented. It was launched in October 2020. And with this launch, it's actually institutionalized as part of the EU biodiversity governance that Jessica was mentioning. So in the new biodiversity strategy, the Commission improved this whole governance with the Commission expert groups, with the creation of this knowledge center, and of course with the creation of the new science service. So this is part of the whole improvement that we think will boost an effective implementation of the biodiversity strategy. So the Knowledge Center is steered, is directed by 6 different directors general of the Commission, research and are 2 of them, together with the European Environmental Agency. So our aim, put in very simple words, our mandate is to generate, to provide the necessary knowledge and also the collaboration that is necessary to implement effectively biodiversity-related policies in the EU, also including their global dimension. So the EU biodiversity strategy is, of course, a central part of it, but it's not the only one, because there are many other legal acts protecting nature that are related to that and necessary, of course. So this was the original idea, but obviously there is a secretariat hosted in the Joint Research Center in my institute. So the Knowledge Center for Biodiversity has a secretariat of a limited size and capacity. So it's not realistic to think that we can cover all possible topics and follow all biodiversity initiatives and provide all necessary knowledge. So that's why the Commission services, several Commission services came up with the idea of creating the Science Service for Biodiversity, because we do need this backup. We do need this scientific pillar. There is a very well-known image where the Knowledge Center for Biodiversity is establishing a bridge between biodiversity research and the implementation of biodiversity policies. And there is a central pillar of it, which is the Science Service. Why do we need this service? Obviously, because we need some support to make the best use and the best integration of research results into policy making. So what is the main role? You ask me, yeah, what do we expect from the Science Service? What is the main role that we expect from this Science Service to be created? It is to map, to harvest, to synthesize, and to present in the right format and time all this knowledge, research knowledge, so science-based evidence that is necessary for policy making and for implementers to make it work in the field. This, of course, covers a broad range of topics. It will not be limited to environmental issues. So there are many times where we will need to reach out, of course, other knowledge holders that may be out of the existing networks or out of the existing consortium here. So in this vision of the bridge, let me insist a bit more, the Science Service is like the knowledge broker that is able to screen all the research side and to distill what is needed and provide to the implementation and policy side targeted solutions and options. Options is normally what is more needed, a set of options, feasible, a set of solutions that can be implemented for the challenges they face every day. So this can be done in different facets. One of them can be spontaneous. So scientists may have a particular concern, may identify gaps, may have spontaneously, foresight activity that they identify. This has to be bring as a key message to policy. That's the first kind of action. But sincerely, where we need more support, where more of our efforts are invested right now is in the second kind of activity, which is reply to ad hoc and specific policy requests. So we do receive a lot of policy requests, and we anticipate receiving many more. And we do need the Science Service to support us in the immediate reply to those policy requests for the implementers and for the decision makers, actually. There again, BioAgora and the Science Service can reply in 2 different modes. They can take directly a particular request and actually reply to it because there are scientific outputs available that can be quickly synthesized and simply provide the answer. Or again, they may need to transmit the request to other knowledge holders. And this is the whole set that we have, several years to establish. But we want to start. We have been starting collaborating with the consortium already since July. There is a very fluid communication and collaboration. We are really looking forward to keep working together every single day.
Excellent, very nice to hear that. And indeed, the idea is that you will do this all together. Fantastic, clear description. Very challenging, I must say, to respond to all these needs, but we have some time. And we work, as I said, not alone. We have already mentioned a number. We have the Knowledge Center mentioned. We have the EU Biodiversity Platform mentioned. Now I add the European Biodiversity Partnership, or Biodiversa Plus. If you're getting dizzy already about all this, don't worry, I'm dizzy as well, because there's so many players in the field that we want to link up with. But we have Hilde Egermond here, a coordinator and chair of the Biodiversa Plus. Here to help us clarify what actually Biodiversa Plus is about, and again also how it relates to the Science Service and the Knowledge Center perhaps as well.
Thank you, and also thank you for inviting Biodiversa Plus to this exciting event. So Biodiversa Plus is the co-funded European Biodiversity Partnership. It's co-created with DG Environment and with DG Research, launched last year, but it's actually building on an existing network, which was Biodiversa, already existing since 2008. It's a network of 74 partners from 37 countries. And these partners are mainly ministries of research, funding agencies and foundations on the one hand, so research policy actors, but we also have on board the ministries of environment and environmental protection agencies. So that's important to understand the type of membership that we have, which also allows us to better connect between science and policy, and now also to integrate a biodiversity monitoring component, which we do hand in hand also with the Knowledge Center. It's also part of the European Biodiversity Strategy 2030, so Biodiversa Plus was already mentioned there. And what is still at the heart of Biodiversa Plus activities is the funding of biodiversity research. We do that through annual joint calls that are co-funded by the European Commission. So every year we launch a big call with an amplitude of around 40 million euros, allowing us to fund around 36 pan-European projects. So that will be a big pool of projects where the Science Service can also draw upon results that we can help to valorize through the Science Service. And as I mentioned, it builds on Biodiversa. These projects are also still ongoing. So I think we have a portfolio of nearly 200 pan-European projects. So that's a big part of the work that we do. Then we have all the biodiversity monitoring activities. I will not expand on that. Within Biodiversa Plus, we also have our own science-based policy support function. Of course, it will be integrated into the Science Service. We will mainly focus on science-based policy support for the projects that we fund, because they do not only serve the European policymakers, but sometimes also local and regional policymakers. There's also a stream of work focusing on nature-based solutions, so that will nicely plug into the demonstration case on nature-based solutions. And I can even disclose that the third call of Biodiversa will focus on that. It will be launched next year in September 2023. So we can imagine that there will be a big pool of projects that will also feed that demonstration case. So when I heard all the work packages presenting, I saw obviously a lot of hooks with the Science Service. First of all, as I mentioned, all the knowledge that will come from the projects will be a perfect place to valorize. Then also when it comes to contributing to the landscape of the actors, Biodiversa Plus itself has a whole ecosystem around it. We have key collaborations with Alternet, with the European Environment Agency, with the KCBD, with the IPES. We are hosting also part of the IPES Secretariat. So I think the Science Service could also benefit from this type of collaborations that we already have, and we are happy to contribute. Also, when it comes to the state of knowledge, we also have our own foresight and horizon scanning activities, but that mainly happens at the level of the member states, so these ministries. So that is a component that we can bring in when you do your horizon scanning activities. Because we do think it is important that the role of research programmers and funders is also recognized in this type of activities. And then maybe the last thing, also when it comes to empowerment and engagement, that is also something that is at the heart of what Biodiversa wants to do. It's really a transversal component to the work, stakeholder engagement, not only at the level of Biodiversa Plus, but also at the level of the projects that we fund. And we also have our capacity building activities. So I think there, again, we can contribute in many ways, also showing some success stories from the projects that we fund. So just in brief, we are very excited. We look forward to the orchestration by the Science Service. And we are very committed to collaborate, to avoid applications, and to also create incentives for the scientific community. So thanks again.
Excellent, Hilde. Thank you very much, and happy to have you as part of the orchestra as well. Just again, for those who are less familiar with it, you mentioned IBBES. Again, at a global level, the intergovernmental platform for biodiversity and ecosystem services. Yet another science policy interface that we will hook up with, among others, through you. And many people which are part of the BioAgora project are contributing to IBBES as well. That leaves me to the last guest here on stage, Marie van der Walle, also one of the coordinators of the BioAgora project and coordinator of Eclipse, mentioned a few times already, with maybe the challenging task, Marie, for you to maybe reflect a bit on what we just heard from the client and from some of our key partners. Can you say a few words on that?
A few words.
A few words.
I'll try my best. Yeah, first of all, I think it is very important to remind ourselves that there is already a wealth of knowledge and scientific evidence that exists to address the biodiversity crisis and the gaps to better implement biodiversity policies. However, converting this into actionable knowledge is very challenging, and as well as implementing policies have been proved to be challenging. So to tackle those challenges, again, as it has been already said, we have been very busy, both at the European Commission and at the science side, to put in place key actors to tackle those challenges in order to support the EU better, make better informed decisions, but also to support the EU taking a leadership on transformative pathway. All those actors have been developed with a clear role and a clear mandate and a clear niche. And in BioAgora, there will be a need of a careful attention to valorizing those roles and niche in the future science service to create resilience, but also to avoid duplication. So the main role of BioAgora will be to develop and test ways to orchestrate those actors and processes and to identify potential gaps in this landscape to improve concerted actions to support the implementation of the EU biodiversity strategy. That will be our entry point for the BioAgora, which has been already said. It's the EU biodiversity strategy. So basically, try to develop an ideal orchestration. And one concrete orchestration, for example, will be to find better ways to interconnect biodiversity research across Europe, but also to rationalize evidence synthesis mechanisms, and also to better connect research results to the need of environmental policy. And for this, we have developed, again, some demonstration cases, and we have started to better understand through a deep analysis of the potential implementation challenges linked to every objectives and target of the biodiversity strategy based on the previous biodiversity strategy. And through this deep analysis, we will be able to come up with tailored program for each challenges on understanding how we could better implement those. So during the first phase, we have already planned 4 demonstration cases, as it was pointed out. And for those 4 demonstration cases, we will come up with some plan based on the type of challenges on how we can better tackle them, okay? And through an iterative process, we will learn from those pilot phase on how to systematize better the work on those to tackle those challenges in the future for the science service. So there is a lot of things to do, but what I wanted to mention is that there will be a lot of ad hoc or pilot or test that we will iteratively improve along the way of science service. And at the end, we will have enough lesson learned to have ideas of like clear functions, and together with the governance that will lead those functions, to build the science service. So one work, for example, just to give you even more concrete work together with the KCBD, is that at the moment, at the European scale, there is no concerted or no way of extract the result of research project. Okay, there is no, so the research projects are finished, they do some scientific paper, and then basically it will be up to you to read them to make up your mind, but often it's not tailored to your needs. So one way will be to, for example, together with the KCBD, who will collect all the needs from the European Commission to have a better idea of what is expected from research, and then ask the research project, for example, to tackle those needs that will be identified directly by the KCBD. So as you see, Science Service will be a mean to this. It will be supported, like, for example, setting up this interface. Yeah, so that's just to give you some concrete example, but there are many more.
Many more, and many more to come. Yeah, thanks a lot, thanks a lot. And clearly this link embedded in the biodiversity strategy commitments and how we respond to it. So thanks a lot, Marie. Thanks to all of you for your input. It has been very clarifying and great to hear. You may stay on board because now we have a few questions perhaps from the stage or from online. Julie, do we know? Do we have any comments or questions coming in through the chat?
No comments at this point.
No comments at this point. Everybody very dizzy and kind of amazed, I think, by what's being presented here. Are we having any questions from the floor, from people here in Helsinki? Or is it all clear? Well, you're all part of the journey, so most of it will be hopefully clear to you, but still. This is the opportunity also to ask questions to people from the Commission of Biodiversity Plus, KCBD. Has it been that clear? That silence here in the room and online as well. Goodness. Well, I see a question. Sepp, please.
It's just you mentioned in this biodiversity platform these 9 groups of experts. Can you be a bit more explicit? What's the kind of criterion, how they are, let's say, designed at different topics, or how does it look like?
So these some of the groups were already existing in the past, but now they are regrouped in the platform, and they meet together regularly to work on different topics, as I mentioned before. For example, forest, invasive alien species. There are 2 groups on invasive alien species. Pollinators, marine issues. Then there is the nature and bird directive. So these are the main topics, and they gather together the Commission, the DG Environment, the member states participate in the groups, and stakeholders. And there is they plan the activity according to the implementation for the EU biodiversity strategy. So it's the governance, it's the way the strategy is going to be implemented. And we expected that the platform will trigger at the moment the request for the science service. So the science service will help to build the bridge between the platform and the knowledge provision, knowledge dimension, horizon projects, and the scientific communities, all the networks of scientists already existing.
So thanks for answering my second question already.
Okay, thank you for that. I have a question, if I may, because we heard mention of the European Environment Agency also as part of the whole scene. And we know they have a number of data sources and information systems, the Biodiversity Information System for Europe, for example, and the EU Nature Information System. How are they positioned within this whole setup of the Knowledge Center and the service to the Commission?
Thank you, Ben, for that question, because unfortunately we don't have them here.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, we can consider them as brothers or sisters. So we work really hand to hand on a daily basis. They are part of our steering our work, and we are also part of steering their work. So we are working together to build this new EU biodiversity governance. Talking about biodiversity only, of course, they work on a lot of other environmental topics. They have been reorganized also recently. So there is a clear focus on biodiversity right now, a very strong team that is growing at the moment to support different initiatives. Restoration Law, for instance, they will be one of the key supporters for that. The system that you mentioned, is also part or will become part of the Knowledge Center for Biodiversity, this biodiversity information system for Europe, because we think that if there is already a platform that is receiving information, officially reported information from member states, that is good to valorize and not duplicate that job. Yeah, I was missing one extra activity that they are leading right now. But I mean, yeah, just to wrap up, I don't know if you have any other key issues, but we work really together on a daily basis to support colleagues from the environment and to support the member states implementers.
Okay, thank you, Rote. I see a question from the floor, from Mihai, please.
Yeah, I was wondering how we are going to link, this is a question to all of us, how we are going to link the science service with the existing or future research infrastructure, like for example LifeWatch or ICOS or for example ELDR.
Hilde, for you.
I think it's a very good question, and it's the momentum as well, also when it comes to the whole biodiversity monitoring community. So there's a big wave of activity now currently in the context of setting up this pan-European harmonized biodiversity monitoring schemes together with Europabon. I see here also representatives, together with the EEA and together with the Knowledge Center. And that also links up with the whole research infrastructures, and that's maybe a role that we as Biodiversity can also help to play, to help scientists to navigate through this very complex landscape, because we have this pan-European reach and we are strongly rooted in the member states. So that is part of the component of the work that we do, is to help to promote the use of European research infrastructures by the scientific community, but then also to better connect it with the global biodiversity research infrastructures. Like GBIF, we recently had a very interesting event with them, and we will really try to integrate that into our work. But obviously we are not the only actor, but we will try to do our share of this big work that needs to be done.
Thank you, Hilde. And again, we heard a number of new acronyms and new platforms added. So clearly, I think that shows that this science service is a piece in this very large puzzle, this very large landscape that we talked about. I will thank you for this input. Thank you also for the audience and for people online. I will wrap it up here. What we clearly heard is we're on a journey. This is not the final stage. We built on existing initiatives and platforms and projects from the past and experiences. A journey that is clearly targeted towards the EU Green Deal biodiversity strategy. We will help ratchet up the biodiversity commitments with our endeavors here. But a long way to go, lots of iterations ahead of us, and also again an open appeal to anybody to join in and to bring in ideas and to help develop this science service. So thanks a lot. Thanks also for the people online. Have a good day, and we'll continue with this. Thanks.